Hello, my name's Andy. Welcome to episode 27 of Keeping Water. In this week's episode, I'm going to be looking at the heron fence I have around my pond, why I use it, what alternatives I considered, and what problems there may be with it. After that, there's a brief update on the filter floss I'm using in the skimmer. Another week, and more thanks for all the new subscribers, and for everyone who takes the time to watch, comment and like my videos. As I said last week, I'm a bit poorly and it was hit and miss if I was going to get the video out this week, but I've just about made it. If you're new to the channel, I release videos every week, so if you'd like to watch more, click on the subscribe button to avoid missing out. There's a growing library of videos on the channel, so take a look and see what you find. Any questions, comments or advice, feel free to share in the comments. Right, let's get started. Right, before I get into the meat of this segment, a little bit of background. So, in late spring, early summer last year, I noticed that some of my marginal plants were laying a little flat. I wasn't sure at the time why this was. I considered that they were suffering from my neglect and were just not growing particularly healthily. That was until I looked out one day and saw a heron stood very confidently on and amongst the marginal plants in exactly that spot. It flew off as soon as it saw me, but obviously were not around all the time to shoo it away. I therefore needed to come up with a way to prevent that heron, or any other ones, from successfully getting to my fish. In thinking how to achieve this, it's useful to look at how herons catch fish, both in ponds and in the wild. They tend to hunt by landing near to a body of water and then walking into shallow areas to wait and then catch any fish that swim within reach. My pond poses a few difficulties to them as, aside from the marginal shelf, there's no shallow areas for them to stand in and fish from. There are no sloping sides. The pond, marginal shelves aside, either goes straight down to 3 foot or straight down to 4 foot. This means if the herons are stood on the side, then it is easy for the fish, if they're being vigilant, to easily swim deep enough to be out of the heron's reach. As I've suggested, however, the weak spots are the marginal shelves, especially when the plants are not fully grown back after winter. It's easy for the herons to find a good place to wait, and although there is still deepish water in front of them, they will also be somewhat concealed by any plants that are still there. Another aspect to consider is how any preventative measures you'll put in place impacts on how your pond looks, and also how they hinder your appreciation and monitoring of the fish. Therefore, after seeing the heron in a pretty risky place, although it's so far not managed to catch one of the fish, I needed to do something to protect them. Some of the options that other pond keepers have used include electric fencing, placing a rigid or flexible net over the pond, and or using some means to scare them off or dissuade them, for instance, a water jet spray or placing a fake heron. I didn't go with any of those plans, and I'll explain why. Electric fencing was out due to a number of concerns I had, including my somewhat reckless cats, where and how I would sort power to it, and this will be a theme, the number of videos of herons I've seen working out how to avoid or indeed tolerate the shocks. Rigid or flexible netting I discounted for 2 reasons. Firstly, because I don't like how they look and how they restrict you seeing the fish, and again, there's numerous videos of herons working out how to beat them, by walking on the net, even flexible ones, and stabbing and injuring the fish through the net. Lastly, water sprays and fake herons. Again, so many examples of herons being completely unbothered by them. So, for the impact they'd have, for example visually, they didn't seem worth their less than guaranteed protection capabilities. So, I went with something else instead, a fence around the edge of the pond. The idea for which is based on the heron's natural way of hunting. They land on the side, then step into the shallow water and hunt from there, or hunt directly from the edge. The net fence would therefore stop them from being able to get to the fish when stood on the edge, and prevent them from being able to enter the pond and stand amongst the marginal plants. It's not a plan without flaws, however, which I'll talk about at the very end of this segment. Equally, herons are nothing if not skilled at problem solving and have great perseverance, so even if mostly flawless, I'm not convinced it's 100% heron proof. Like everything I do with my pond, it's done on a limited budget. The netting I already had, the posts I had a couple of, and then bought some more, and I already had some cable ties. Never be without cable ties. This video will show some small adjustments I've made to it, which I've done on an absolutely zero budget. I have a rough plan to make a sturdier wooden frame that will offer more protection and look better, but with all the other projects I've got this year, I've just not got the cash to spend on it. Again, there's some flaws, obvious flaws to the work I've done on it, and again I'll talk more at the end of this segment. The plan for this week's work was to address a couple of things. Firstly, just to complete a quick tidy up. The frame had suffered a bit having the leaf netting on it. Secondly, to move the posts a bit nearer the pond to prevent too much leaning, and remove any space between the net fence and the edge of the pond, and to raise the fence height as much as possible. One of the problems with this fencing is that when the plants have died off and or been cut back, it's both less effective as a barrier and looks a lot worse. Again, without spending money I don't have, there's not a lot I can do about its appearance. Just a couple of notes. As I've said on previous videos, I sit down a lot doing this work. I've got a dodgy back that doesn't enjoy manual labour of any kind. And also in this video, I've used the GoPro for most of it due to the intermittent rain, so the quality isn't as good as I'd have got from my iPhone. For these first posts, I'm just trying to secure and straighten them and raise the fence as much as I can. As I work around to the front, I come to a section of plastic mesh. This was originally here to stop my cats getting to the fish. Its height is what it is, and again with no budget, I raised it a little, but it's not as high as the net parts. As I work around, you may see that the wood brick edging is slightly wobbly and uneven, and the pebbles fall in the pond a lot. I would like to replace these with proper stone garden bricks, which I can make more secure, but again, budget. You may also see me looking up a lot. It was a little windy while filming this, and one of the 2 trees at the back of my garden was making a decidedly worrying creaking noise. Now, while I both love and hate these trees, they look great, but share far too many leaves, I really don't want one of them falling onto my garden and probably my house. I'll keep an eye out. This edge here is the safest edge, as the plants are quite robust and the fence is nice and uniform and high. Next, I'm doing the bodgiest bodge of all bodges. I doubt they could, but I'm a little worried that a heron could get from the edge to the wall. So here I make a little flat cover to stop this, probably totally imagined threat. I'm probably going to take it off quite soon. Right, that's all I could get done today. So what are the flaws of it? Firstly, the walled area. I think it's a little close to the shed for a heron to land straight onto it, but I wouldn't put it past them. Once on it, the fish could easily avoid them. As you've probably seen from my previous videos, my fish are decidedly spooky when anything is standing over the pond. I think the most at risk fish would be the rudd, as they're more easily seen, plus are less nervous. Still, they'd be hard to get at from the wall. Except that at the moment the irises are cut back, so any heron could land on the walled area and then could easily step onto the baskets and have access to the shallowest part of the pond. The other flaw is I'm not sure my thinking is completely sound. Herons are pretty adaptable, and I'm sure a really hungry and determined one could work out a way around the fence. For instance, I've seen them land straight onto water, grab a fish and take off immediately. Plus, they are big strong birds, and the fence, well, isn't. So again, I'm not sure they couldn't just bully their way past it. Anyway, short of building a house around your pond, I'm not sure that there is anything 100% heron proof. I think what I have is somewhat preventative. In addition, one of the bonuses of home working is that there's usually someone around. Plus, my CCTV lets me keep a regular eye on the pond. Finally, we have 2 cats, one of which is scared of pretty much nothing and wouldn't think twice about chasing off anything even twice its size that comes in the garden. I'm betting her bluff would win over a heron's usual timidness. I hope so anyway. I'd love to hear how you deter herons and what's worked and not worked for you. Just a quick update on the filter floss. As you may have heard me say in recent episodes, I've changed a couple of things that might impact on water clarity, using my new pond vac, reduction in feeding, and using filter floss in the skimmer. In the last week or so, I've become more convinced than ever that clarity is significantly improved. It's hard to film it, as you can see in this clip, due to water movement and glare, but the pebbles, that I really need to clear out, the different colours of the pond floor and even the dark coloured fish are all really clearly visible, even on a day with limited sunlight as this was. In this underwater clip that I took today, about 5 days after the previous one, you can see that there are far less finds in the water than in previous underwater videos. The water is a little coloured as a recent rain meant it overflowed and some dirt was washed in from the garden, but even taking that into account, I'm really happy with it. I'm happy therefore that the filter floss is doing its job in terms of removing fine detritus from the water. Whether it, the skimmer and I can keep up with things when the load increases come spring and summer remains to be seen. Good early signs though. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Keep in Water. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and a share, and click on the button below to subscribe to the channel to watch future videos. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.